What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Tactical Ambitions. And today, I'm excited to have my friend, my longtime friend, Scott Volquartsen. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Volquartsen Firearms. Now, give people a little bit of background, the people who may not have, because we have some non-tactical ninja people watching. We have some, suburban, housewives watching. A little bit about your background and the company you've built.
Okay, so my dad started the company, and my brother and I took over about 20 years ago. But we are a very niche business based all around rimfires, which are 17 HMRs, 22 mags, and primarily 22 LR. Mm-hmm. So it's we always thought we'd kind of outgrow that market, mm-hmm. but the more we get into it, the more we find we have so much left to do with it.
Yeah,
and it's kind of a great starting point for a lot of people that get into firearms because it's low recoil, it's not overly loud, and for a long time people have always said, well, rimfires are great, but they don't run, the ammo's not dependent. So that's kind of been our challenge, and something we wanted to overcome was they can run, it just takes, you have to put the right effort into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you seen, let's say in the past 24 to 36 months, everyone knows there's been a big uptick in firearms. COVID brought a lot of people into the firearms world, and then with some of the events going on in our country and our world right now, there's a lot of fear out there. We get that at 221B Tactical. A lot of people reaching out. They want body armor for their kids. They want body armor for the backpack. All this stuff. They're looking for home defense. Now we're putting together home defense kits for people who've never shot a gun, don't own a gun, and they're asking, and do you have any resources to learn about self-defense and firearms and things like that? So, like I told you earlier, we had Tony Blauer on, and we're going to have his training on our website. And you actually mentioned that you have some of his team coming out to train your people. Yeah,
they're going to bring their program, their Be Your Own Bodyguard program, into our facility and work with whoever from our company wants to, go through the course.
Yeah.
And then he's also going to provide some of his online training as like a follow-up to that.
Yeah. So are you seeing in not only just the uptake in the firearm sales, but are you seeing this similar uptick in maybe fear and uncertainty from people out there that are coming into the firearms world, but even just coming into the defense world, if you would?
I think absolutely.
Yeah.
And we live in small town Iowa.
Yeah.
And for a long time growing up, you kind of get complacent and like, oh, nothing's ever going to happen here.
Yeah, yeah.
But as the world has changed, even since like 2020, I've had a lot of people who have never been firearms people whatsoever. Mm-hmm. They'll come up and they're like, where do I start?
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of great resources out there for them.
Yeah.
But there are people that never thought they'd have a firearm in the house.
Yeah.
And now they want, and that kind of leads them down the entire road of, okay, firearms and then, further self-defense.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing that people are seeing, because at least like in Iowa, you can't carry a gun on school grounds. Okay. So there's a lot of places that it can be easy to get complacent when you're carrying thinking, oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
But as Tony will always talk about, most encounters happen, from this distance.
Yeah.
You don't have time to draw. You don't have time to get your gun.
Right.
And he talks about like the mindset of it. And I think that's where I see people changing.
Yeah.
Is their mind is the way they view it is different.
Yeah, yeah. Are you seeing more people now shifting toward from the it's never going to happen to me to, oh crap, this might happen in my town, or this might happen at my local movie theater or shopping center, because we're seeing that. We're seeing these things happen at these random locations that people are at every day, supermarket, movie theater, things like that. And sometimes, and more often than not, it's happening in some random small town.
Yeah.
You're saying, how is this happening?
And I think what I see too is, you see those same parents, they're much more concerned about, as their kids start going out on their own, how am I doing a good enough job preparing them?
Yeah, yeah.
Where that was never a conversation, at least not as prevalent as it is now. It was always, oh, they'll be fine. We live in a small town, but now you have parents having conversations with those kids. If this happens, this is what you should try to do.
Yeah, yeah. And I know you have kids.
Yes.
And what are some of the conversations you've had with them? And I know I talk to people all the time. They say, I have a conversation with my son, and then there's a conversation I have with my daughter, because it's two different maybe kinds of threats that they may be looking at. What are some of the conversations you've had with them as things have changed in our society?
Probably the biggest one is just being situational awareness.
Yeah.
Take your head off your phone, or, look up from your phone occasionally. At least.
When you're walking to your car.
Yes. When you're walking to your car, like with my daughter, if you're driving back to your apartment, if you see somebody that's been following you for a while and making, just pay attention to that and just drive on by.
Yeah.
Simple things, just being aware of the situation.
Yeah.
Even if you go to a grocery store and you look at most people standing in line, everybody's staring straight down at their phone. Mm-hmm. Nobody has any idea of their surroundings or what's going on around them.
Yeah.
So I think for my kids, that's been one of the biggest ones, is the just situational awareness.
When it comes to home defense, there are people who are the proponents of a shotgun, and then there's people who are proponents of smaller caliber. Where do you stand on that?
My first thought on it is, whatever you're going to be willing to train with and you're comfortable with, start there. Mm-hmm. If you're somebody that's going to be with I prefer, I know a lot of people are shotgun guys. Mm-hmm. I'm still a handgun in the nightstand.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
And that's where I'm comfortable with. But if it's somebody, I tell them, what are you comfortable with?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if something does happen, your reflexes and instincts have to take over in many cases.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to sit there and think about, okay, what's my training been? How do I operate this?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to have to be, muscle memory for.
Are you seeing a gravitation toward maybe like 22 LR and kind of firearms in that world, because, like you said, lower recoil, a little less threatening, a little less bite when you shoot?
I think what we're seeing a lot, especially with like new people to the industry, is they still may have whatever that they're going to carry, mm-hmm. but it's kind of opened their eyes to, they want to spend more time at the range, they want to shoot more, and that's where the 22s come in, because it's a more economical way to shoot.
Yeah, it's cheaper ammo.
Yeah, and I'll kind of ask you maybe, because I've seen that. Even just like traveling and everything, 20 years ago when I would travel and they're like, what do you do? And I'd be like, oh, we're in the firearms business. You'd get like this really dirty look, or almost like you were doing something illegal.
Yeah.
And now when I travel and I say that, I get a lot more people that'll say they have questions.
Yeah.
People that have never been gun people, anti-gun in many times, they're starting to have that conversation. I mean, there's still people out there that hate our industry, but we're never going to convert some of them.
Yeah.
But there's just people having that conversation of, what do you think? Kind of back to your point, what do you think I should have, or what should I carry?
Yeah.
Or what should I have in my house?
Yeah.
What should I buy my wife if I'm looking to get her some protection?
Yeah.
And that wasn't a conversation many times out in normal circles.
Yeah. Yeah. I have some friends that are in the firearms industry and firearms space, and it's funny, the reactions they get when they tell people, I work for a firearms company, versus when they tell people I work in the home defense arena. And then they're like, oh, home defense. Yeah, home defense as if, someone breaks into your home, or, protect your family, things like that. And then they say, okay, well, what do you do? And then they go into what they offer. It's a totally different entree into, I'm in the firearms industry, because when you just say that, a lot of people, I think, are thinking of school shootings, they're thinking of this, they're thinking of that. So when we're talking about a lot of people who are coming to us now for home defense kits and body armor for their kids and all, it was just crazy. We got overwhelmed with requests for that. So now we're doing the body armor for children. We're doing the self-defense kits, the home defense kits. What do you see as far as for the future of what you're offering? What do you see is going to be something that is going to be relevant for the homeowner who is trying to put together a little something for their home to protect them? We don't know what 911 lead times are going to be. Right now, in some cities, it's over 30, 40 minutes, right? We have violent crime rising. We have protests all over the place for God knows what. It's what's the flavor of the month, and people are surrounding cars and shaking cars and attacking women and children in vehicles
in broad daylight. I mean,
broad daylight,
right in the middle of a neighborhood.
No fear of getting arrested by the police or anything, and if they do, they know that they're going to get off, and it's going to be no big deal. You have people just waltzing into stores, filling their shopping carts full of stuff, and waltzing out. And there's a lot of people who are looking at that and saying, well, that's Target or that's Walmart or whatever. But what happens when they start doing that in homes?
Yeah.
What happens? Because then that starts changing. So from a home defense standpoint, from what you guys offer, what do you see as the most popular offer that you have?
We offer a couple different shorter versions of our pistols that are threaded for suppressors.
Okay.
And we have guys that they're starting to buy those, put suppressors on them. But lately we've been getting a lot of requests. They want to be able to mount a light to the bottom, which it seems, a little, to me, even a little bit weird. That's what we want to do with the 22, but that's where, they're comfortable with.
Yeah.
They can, they can practice with it a lot. They can keep it on them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we've been. And the other thing that I think that we help with is when we go do events and different things, we can have first-time gun owners or somebody's wife or significant other or child come up and shoot, and we can kind of be I hate using this term, but the gateway drug to get them into being comfortable with firearms.
Yeah.
Because it's a very intimidating thing if first time you go to a range.
Yeah.
And far too often we see a guy, okay, here's my 45, shoot this.
Yeah. That's a hand cannon.
Yeah.
It scares them, and they're like, boom, I'm done.
And we'll hear a lot of times the wife or girlfriend, whatever it might be, will turn to their husband and they'll say, now this is something I can shoot.
Or that wasn't bad at all.
Yeah, so it might only be a 22, but if it's something they're able to shoot, it's much more effective than something they're scared of.
Yeah.
And it gives them that confidence. They can go to the range, they can start hitting what they're shooting at.
Yep.
And they can grow right into it.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants to be successful when you start out with something.
Yeah.
And this is a way it gives them that first level of success. Okay, guns aren't that as scary as what I thought. These are comfortable. I want to do more.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the mini golf entree into actual golf. You go play putt-putt golf. You're like, oh, look at this, and this isn't terrible. That's what I get when I try to introduce people, taking them to the range and having them shoot a 22.
Yeah.
It's very unintimidating. It doesn't throw them off, and they do better. They do better because they're not scared, right? They're not scared of the gun going off. There's not this major recoil. So they do better. They actually get a couple of rounds on target, and you say, oh, see it. And then like you said, the term gateway drug is, a little, people might have a wrong connotation, but if you're getting into the firearms business and the firearms game, and you say, okay, you know what, I want to own a firearm, but I've never shot. That's the perfect. Some people they say, oh, let's start with a 9. Some of the 9s out there can be a little brutal on you as well. So starting at that end and then moving up, definitely, and then some people should never shoot a 45. Yeah. But it's an option. What do you see as far as where our crime statistics keep climbing? And we're not going to get into why that is, but we see the crime statistics keep climbing, and more people have concerns, not just in their homes, but in their everyday activities, right? We talked about people getting, accosted in their cars and all that stuff. So there's something to be said for the portability of some of the weapons that you have. So can you speak to that and some of the benefits of that?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that we do is very lightweight, very compact, so it's very easy to, very easy to travel with or carry.
Yeah.
The other thing is, since we're in the rimfire market, there's certain areas that our stuff is legal in a certain state that just because it's not a center fire.
Yeah.
So guys can have that and they can, take it to the range. They can practice and, different ways, and they can't do that with certain centerfire rifles or pistols because, for whatever godforsaken reason, that the state has
outlawed it or something.
Outlawed that,
Yeah.
And I think, on top of the portability, it's just a lot of, you can go to the range and shoot 500 rounds, no problem. Your wrist.
You're not breaking the bank.
You're not breaking the bank, and you're not beating yourself up.
Yeah.
So it's just like anything. If you want to get good at it, reps.
Yeah.
And you can do that with these versus, if you go shoot larger caliber, and we all like to do that, but if you're out there for an hour, that's a long time to be shooting.
Yeah. Well, not only a long time to beat your wrist up, and
something else that we've just kind of uncovered over the last couple of years is we've had a lot of like former military guys that are going back to rimfire.
Really?
And some of it is they shot all the big stuff. They did it for a career.
Yeah.
And now they just want something a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But even more than that, they're beat up.
Yeah.
They've injured their wrist, their shoulder, their elbow, whatever it might be, and they can't necessarily even handle a larger caliber the way they used to.
Yeah.
Where the rimfire allows them to still get to the range, get practice in.
Yeah.
Without having to obviously go through any pain or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that was something I never thought of. We started having customers tell us that. And in some cases, it's guys that were in the military 30, 40 years ago, and they want to get back into shooting, but they don't need to go into something larger.
Yeah, they don't need the hand cannon.
Yeah, and I think part of that is they thought they didn't have to do anything, to protect themselves, and we get back into this world that we're in now, and it's a different conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. What's been your biggest growth sector at Volquartsen?
For us, it's been, ironically, the competition side.
Really?
Yeah, and not the competition. Yes, we have the guys that wear the jerseys and do that.
Yeah.
Where it's really grown is, people in their 60s and even 70s, grandparents going out with their grandkids and shooting the same competition.
Okay.
Because rimfire steel has grown tremendously over the last probably 10 to 12 years.
Yeah.
And I think it's because it's something they can do as a family.
Yes. Yeah.
And, like I said, competition shooters, like the ones that are wearing the jerseys, we have those, and they're great.
Yeah.
But they're not great customers because you're usually giving them their...
Yeah.
So, and it's, because our stuff can be expensive for a 22.
Sure.
But when all of a sudden a dad or a grandfather can go do it with their granddaughter or grandson, it's the experience. It's not... It's much easier to justify the cost when they're doing that. But so that's been our biggest growth area.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's really interesting to see. Now, we have a lot of new shooters, post-COVID and, with everything going on. Do you track the level of females purchasing firearms, or do you have any finger on the pulse of if you have more females utilizing this, let me say, I don't want to say smaller firearms, but the smaller caliber firearms?
That the female market has grown exponentially for us.
Yeah.
And we even hear it just in conversations of, we were walking by a booth yesterday at the SHOT Show, and somebody stopped us, and she's like, will you please come in here for a second? She goes, you need to tell my husband my next purchase needs to be one of your rifles.
No kidding.
Yeah. And they're becoming much more knowledgeable with the women are with their firearms than what I saw maybe 20 or 25 years ago.
No kidding.
They're more comfortable, and we see a lot even in our order. A lot of our orders go through dealers and different things.
So you wouldn't know.
But we do still sell some retail. They still have to ship to dealers so people don't get the wrong idea.
Yeah.
I hate to feed into the whole, you can buy a gun off the internet and have it shipped to your house. Debacle.
I have to go through a dealer.
Yeah. But like when they're emailing and asking questions, they'll be like, this one's for my wife. Or we'll get the email that I bought one, my wife has taken it from me. She liked it so well, she's taken it.
Yeah.
I need to order another one for myself. Which I always think is one of our biggest compliments is when a guy can say, I ordered one, but my wife took it for her, and
she liked it so much.
Yeah, she liked it so much, and
and that's a great thing, and that's something that I think most men who are into shooting, and if that's something that, because I would say most of the time, my friends who are weapons guys, they order a gun and their wife sees it and they maybe try to fire it, who knows?
Yeah.
And they're like immediately, no, it's too big, it's too, whatever. But to take one of your firearms and go to the range and fire it, I don't see any female not falling in love with it. You know?
And I think that's why the Rimfire steel has gotten so popular, because it's instant feedback.
Yeah.
You know, they know right away if they've had success.
Did I hit?
Did I? Yeah.
Yeah.
You get that audible.
Yeah, and satisfying. It's that audible, and then it's satisfying. That ping is what really, it makes you feel good.
And it's interesting too. I've noticed, we went through that phase where, like, okay, if it was a female ordering a firearm, do we have to make it ping? We kind of went through that.
We went through that,
and I'm glad we're out of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of women now, they're like, they want to maybe customize it with a Cerakote or something.
Yeah.
But you would not be able to. It's not the stereotypical standard pink gun because it's going to a female.
So let's talk about customization. I know that you've kind of grown in that space as well. So what kind of customizations do you have that offset you from some of the other people in your space?
Our biggest advantage is we machine everything in-house.
Okay.
So, one, we can make changes on the fly, but we can do that custom. If somebody wants to do something a little bit different, we can do that very easily for them.
Okay.
With the 3D modeling software and everything that's out there, you can kind of give them a view of what it's going to look like, or, this is why it won't work, or this is why it will work.
Okay.
But I think the biggest thing that, and everybody has access to this, but as the Cerakote market has really exploded, it allows people to do different camo patterns, different colors, all that stuff. But the way that we do things, it's probably not the fastest. And if you hired a business consultant, they'd probably a lot of times say, well, you should be doing it this way.
Right.
Because we wire EDM all of our internal components. It's not the highest volume way to do things. It's not the fastest, but it's the best way we know how.
Okay.
And we do things from that standpoint so you don't have to replace these parts. They're wire EDM from hardened tool steel.
Okay.
We put certain finishes on our bolts that require less maintenance and less cleaning.
Okay.
Because that's the other, we grew up having to clean our firearms, but new people, it's much tougher to get them to disassemble a firearm and clean it.
I know.
So the more we can do that it's maintenance free, the more fun it is to shoot.
Yeah. It's hard enough to get someone to a range to shoot a gun that's, and then you tell them at some point, all right, you're going to take this apart and you're going to put it back together and shoot it again. That's intimidating.
Yes.
That's really intimidating for a lot of people. So lowering the maintenance requirements, that's huge.
Yeah. And one thing I always try to do is lower that barrier to entry.
Yeah.
Because like I said, this is an intimidating industry if you've never been in it.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting better at welcoming new people.
Yeah.
But for a long time, I think we also, if they weren't 100% on board with every single thing we did, we kind of shunned them in a few ways.
Oh, yes.
Oh, you don't agree exactly with me?
Yeah. You must be an anti-2A person.
Yeah, and I even wrote an article for our email subscribers, it's probably been a year or so ago, but like the gun owner, the face of the gun owner, or the stereotypical gun owner, that appearance has changed.
Totally.
It's no longer, you don't have to be, and I have nothing against it, but you don't have to wear the tactical pants and everything.
The beard, the tattoos.
Beard. Yeah, there's a completely different demographic that's come into the industry.
Yeah.
That they look different than what, they're not the prototypical hunter or, ex-military, but they still want to be involved in the community.
Yeah, and I think I've seen the shift, which is nice, that there is a more of a welcoming to them. And because more and more people are realizing that we went through a time in our country during the COVID, craziness, that things can happen and at any point they can have no power and they can have no control.
Right.
And I know people on both sides of the aisle that immediately shifted into a mindset of self-preservation. And I saw people who were as liberal as can be, and I have friends on both sides of the aisle, and I saw friends that were conservative as can be. Neither have ever had any inkling to own a firearm. now reaching out to me to say, thinking about buying a gun, was wondering if you could take me to the range.
Yeah.
And for people that you would never think to hear that from. Why do you think there was so much of that over the last 3 years?
You know, because I think a lot of people that maybe were never involved in firearms, they always had the philosophy that I'll just call 911.
Yeah, call the police. Yeah.
I'll call the police, or, you know, they'll protect me, or it's never going to happen here.
Yeah.
But you start seeing it in different pockets throughout the country.
Yeah.
And I think it's some of the places where, like, they were defunding the police and different things.
Yeah.
You know, nobody, I think, felt safe.
Yeah, right.
You know, and I've always said, even people, complete anti-gun people and people that, you know, that are the most pro-gun people ever, they want the same thing. They want to be safe.
Yeah.
They want their family to be safe.
Yeah.
They have completely different ideologies of how to get there.
Yeah.
But they want that same thing. And I think even some of the most anti-gun people during that time are like, well, wait a minute, what can I do to protect my family?
Yes. Yeah.
And they had to, and I give them a lot of credit for saying, okay, maybe this is the time I need to learn how to use a gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's where, as our community has to be really good at not being, I told you so.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw a lot of that.
Yeah. Gotcha. I knew you'd come around.
I saw.
You know, be like, okay, where do you want to, you know, I'd love to help you. Let's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's welcome them and not make them feel like bad for how they thought.
Yeah.
Their mindset has changed. Their mindset has shifted. They're seeing something differently. They're reading the world differently. So now let's say, okay, let's welcome them in, show them the way a little bit. They may not become an avid firearms person. They may not become some avid hunter, but now they're in. They're part of the community.
Yeah.
They're a firearms owner, and they may just want to keep it in their nightstand.
Yeah.
And pray they never need to use it. That may be it.
And I've had some that say, I still will never own a firearm, but now I know why you want to. That perspective has changed.
That is huge too.
Yeah. So now they're no longer trying to take our rights away.
Yeah.
And they might, and I would never force somebody. I mean, if you're not comfortable with it, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Especially if if they go to the range, try it, and they're like, no, I don't.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can respect that.
I always say, don't knock it until you try it.
Yeah.
But if you try it, and even after trying it, you say, it's not for me, respect.
Yeah.
No problem. I got it. Understood. But you maybe have a different understanding of it now.
They may respect our opinion or our view a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think is, well, it doesn't just apply to the firearms community. We do that throughout every single topic we could think of in the country.
Yeah. I mean, there used to be a time where there was a phrase that you and I will remember, which is agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Right? As we grew up, there were certain people who would have certain conversations, and if there wasn't a meeting in the middle, then it would end with, well, I guess we'll have to just agree to disagree. And you'd shake hands and you'd carry on.
Yeah.
Right? Today, that's kind of gone by the wayside, and if we disagree, you're a horrible person, you're a terrorist, you're a racist, you're some lunatic, and you're sitting there like, wait, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm none of those things. Can't we just have a different view on the same thing? Is that no longer possible?
And I know my parents talk a lot about even, back, you didn't know what everybody's view was on everything.
Yes, that's the other thing.
You didn't have to know what religion they were, what they thought about firearms.
No.
What they thought,
Yeah, we live in this wild time, and now I saw this video the other day. It was funny. We're watching. I was at some event here earlier this week, and someone was watching videos, and they said, "Oh, check out this video." And this guy was going around interviewing all these young girls. I don't know where they were, some public setting, and all girls look like college-age girls. And he was asking them what they thought of when they saw someone wearing the American flag. The American flag was somewhere on them, like my shirt.
Like a green shirt.
Right? And all these young women were saying, oh, I think that's a sign of that person's a racist. I think that person is this. All these negative, terrible things.
Yeah.
And I found myself thinking, at what point did we get to where having just like an American flag on your shirt like this made you a list of 10 things? racist, a bigot, a xenophobe, all these things that they rattled off. That didn't happen overnight, right? That takes a lot of time to get 20-something-year-old girls that are at a university, so they're not dumb, right? They're not dumb, and to get that mindset. And it's kind of terrifying to think that that's prevalent, and there was no questions asked, but if there was a follow-up question asked regarding firearms, I'm sure a lot of these young ladies would have thought and had similar thoughts about firearms and what their role in our society and things like that. You may or may not have the answer to this, but what needs to happen for a shift to go back in our world, in our country? Let's focus on the country, away from where I don't want to even describe the path we're going down now, but the path we're going down now. What do you think needs to happen to come back around?
I wish I had the answer. I think in some ways I almost feel, this is going to be maybe a weird analogy, but we almost have to get to that rock bottom place for people to realize that it's a messed up society. We're in a messed up world right now.
Yeah.
And in some places I start to see it where people think it's just gone too far.
Yeah.
But it's such a tough battle because, especially with these girls you were talking about that are in their 20s, everything is so social media driven, and all that can be so corrupted and dictated by the powers that be.
Yeah.
Of what you see, and I've even seen it with my own kids. They start clicking on one thing, and that's all they see in their feed.
Yeah,
and they start. You gotta be like, think about this logically.
Yeah, right. Just because you keep seeing it doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah. And I'm like, who's even, look at the accounts you're following, or look at why are they experts on supposedly this topic?
Unknown. Yeah, unknown.
But I even think you're starting to see a little bit with X where there's, those community notes where people are actually be able to put facts below some outrageous posts and different things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I almost think people just need to realize, I think, or as we start to see how far we've come down as a country.
Yeah.
And I still think we're the greatest country on earth, obviously.
100%.
But from where we were, even when we were kids, I think people will start to realize that we got to move back a little bit that direction. And I think a lot of it starts, in the schools.
Yeah.
I can't ever remember a teacher, and I'm sure maybe it happened or whatever, but letting me know their political belief or trying to persuade me
never
one way or the other on a social topic.
It was weird to see one of our teachers outside of school.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened, but I never, as a kid growing up, I always thought my teachers just kind of almost lived in school, right? You never saw them out in public. They were just your teachers. They were there, and you knew nothing about them. You didn't know if they were married or had kids. You just knew nothing about them. And that was fine for me. It was fine with my mom. No one really cared. Now you look at what you're seeing, and it's almost bizarre. You know their sexual orientation, their pronouns, and their... Now, in math class, somehow your math teacher is telling you about some garbage from, about there's, 97 genders. And you say to yourself, okay, at what point do you put the stop to say, hey, we're teaching math, science, English, history. This is what we're teaching here. If you want to create a resource for kids who want to know about that other stuff, make it an elective, and let them elect to go in. Hey, I want to learn more about that. I want to learn more. Maybe I have a little bit of different outlook, but if you tell me that this is your outlook, before I just say, no, I don't agree with that, all right, let me take this elective class and maybe learn about it, and let me learn about your viewpoint. But that shouldn't be forced in regular courses that is your basic curriculum of
that's required
So
and I think you touched on something there though. People need to spend more time learning on stuff, learning about stuff, and not just forming an opinion so quick. And I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. But listen to the other side. with an open mind.
Yes.
And then, not be so quick to respond, but process what they said and then, try to approach it that way.
Yeah. And most people are not even willing to say, all right, let me know, give me what you got. Let me take a look and see what it is you're speaking of. And then I have a pretty good brain and I have good reasoning skills. I will take a look at it and I will say, this is crazy. This is nonsense based on my background and my knowledge. Or I could say, this is actually something I didn't think about. And it might expand my knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm at least willing to do that. When you remove people's ability to do that, or you just say, I'm not even going to listen to you, I'm not even going to look at what you have, nothing, then you're like, wait a second, hold on, how did we get to this point here, And then you're stifling all growth of any kind. I know that we have homeschool rates that are skyrocketing.
Yeah.
People keeping their kids and homeschooling them up over 30%.
Then I've heard they're starting to have, people are starting to build schools, like these smaller, they're not government accredited schools, but basically these smaller schools that are like a homeschool, but
really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Where they're bringing in, I don't know how many students, I don't really know a lot of the details.
Yeah.
But so you're essentially homeschooling them.
Yeah.
But you have teachers, or different people doing it.
Yeah.
Versus actually just taking place in your house.
I heard of people doing that in communities. Yeah. A friend of mine, when he told me this, I said, wait a second, what are you talking? He said, I'm taking my kids to the neighbors for school. Yeah. And I said, you're taking your kids to the neighbors for school. Apparently, so many families in his neighborhood have opted to homeschool that there's someone in the neighborhood who had kids that was homeschooling. Now everyone's taking their kids there. And I don't know what the legality of it is. Have like 10 kids in your living room that you're teaching, you're homeschooling. But that's what people are doing. That's how crazy our public school system has gotten. That's a wild, and these people are paying property tax that goes toward their education system.
And when we were kids, if somebody said they were homeschooled, you'd be like, I don't even know what that is.
What's that? Some weirdo?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it occasionally happened for different reasons, but now somebody says they're homeschooled, you're like, you don't even think twice about it.
You're like, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. And I have so many friends that do it now. It's just become the norm. And at first I was kind of, really? Now, 2 years later, when someone tells me their kids are still going to regular school, I'm like, how's that going? how's that going?
I mean, my kids are all out of the house now, but it would have been a conversation that we would have had if my kids were just entering school right now.
Yeah, right?
Which I never would have said 5 or 10 years ago.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Isn't that wild? Like, you would actually consider it now.
Yeah.
But it causes a hardship, right? Because now you have someone having to be home, and I'm sure that's why these little community homeschools are helping.
But the one thing I do hear, and it makes a lot of sense, is when they homeschool them, it's done in a much quicker window throughout the day.
Yes.
Because they can just get to the topic. They can don't go through all the other customary stuff we do in school.
Yeah.
So they've taken a 7-hour school day, and it may be 3 hours. Mm-hmm. And they're getting just as much out of it from the learning side.
Yeah, and I've seen that before too, I don't want to say that I've lost faith in any part of our country or any part of our society, because I think, like you said, there's, I don't know how to relate this to, but like when sometimes an addict doesn't turn their lives around until they hit that rock bottom. They almost kill themselves with that overdose or something like that. And it's only at that point where they say, that's it, I'm done, and they turn their lives around. But I think you're right with a lot of the things we're seeing. I think there is that rock bottom that needs to be hit before people start realizing, I think we kind of went the wrong way here.
And I think, even in the school part of that, I think the one thing we have to remember, that most teachers and I think most school systems are very good.
Yes.
So I don't want to act like I'm throwing the entire thing under the bus, but it's the ones that, the few that kind of stand out and get all the attention or whatever.
Yeah.
But I do think with that rock bottom, and I think kind of like an addict, once they usually recover, what's the first thing they want to do? help other people
Help
that
other
were in that
people.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah. So that might be a good turning point.
Yeah.
We've talked before, and, I've mentioned this before. There was after 9/11 was one of the greatest times in our nation as far as unity and everyone coming together, and people celebrating first responders and celebrating our soldiers. And you couldn't walk 5 feet anywhere in this country without seeing an American flag. So you hope that the rock bottom event that occurs isn't another 9/11.
Right.
You hope that at least before you get to that extreme point, people will start looking and saying, I think we went off track here.
I'm starting to see it. I watch a lot of sports, a lot of football. Mm-hmm. You're starting to see, I think, even more football players, or whatever, pick the sport, that are starting to get more publicity and talk more about, like a couple weeks ago, C.J. Stroud, the whole part about where it was edited.
It was edited out.
That he said he was thanking, his Lord.
Yeah.
But I think you're seeing more athletes starting to become more vocalized.
Yeah.
Which I think is a great thing, because I think some of that is how we got to where we're at is, for better or worse, athletes have a lot of power and celebrities have a lot of power in this country. Yeah. So I think as we start seeing some of them vocalize their feelings and start talking about this stuff, I think it's going to help.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad that we're in a time where a high-level athlete like CJ can come off the field and in an interview say, for those of you who maybe miss it, the on-field reporter put the microphone up to CJ after their win, and he said, first and foremost, I'd like to give thanks to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And then he went on to talk about the game. They cut that part out, and they just went to the part where he started talking about the game. And you and I know that if the first words out of his mouth had something to do with some of these crazy agendas or some of these crazy groups out there, whatever it might be, they would not have cut that out.
Yeah.
They would not have cut that out. They would have kept it in there. So it makes you wonder, even if the people are changing, if the people putting out and disseminating the information aren't changing, is there going to be a change?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Is there going to be a change? If everyone starts saying, hey, you know what? Listen, I'm open. I've told you about my faith, and you have athletes like that openly sharing their thoughts about their faith, and maybe even other things that are really. And
he wasn't preaching to anybody.
No,
he wasn't like, "Hey, if you follow Jesus Christ, good things will happen."
Yeah, right.
He wasn't doing any of that. He said, "I want to just thank."
At what point did that become like something that we look down at?
Yeah.
At what point do we say we got to ban people from saying that and block it? They would never. The NFL would never put anything out to say, "Hey, listen, you can't say this," right? Because they know they would get completely crushed. But the fact that news networks are doing that, and here's the thing: this is the time they got caught. Yeah. And everyone somehow caught it, right? There was some kind of slip up and it got caught. But how many other times has it happened? And you and I, we never knew about it. Yeah. Right? So how many times does that happen? That's the scary thing for me and a lot of people out there. I want to let the people know, the people who are coming to our website, 221B Tactical, and buying the gear to help protect their homes and, maybe when they're out in their vehicles, things like that. Where can they find out more information about your products? And because, like you said, it's a great entree into this world. Are you planning on doing anything further from the training standpoint? So first question, where can they find your... The
easiest place to find our stuff is Volquartsen.com. Mm-hmm. Our Instagram is Volquartsen Firearms. Mm-hmm. We're heavily shadow banned. So it's... Yeah, firearms. You pretty much got to type the entire thing out to get there. And then 50-50 if you find it. Yeah. But it's, system we have to play within. Yeah. So the website's usually the best, best place, and that's just Volquartsen.com. Okay. And from a training standpoint, are you guys? I know you've been expanding incredibly. I can't wait to come out to your facility. Yeah, I can't wait to have you. And I want to be on your podcast. I'm hoping to get the invite. We are going to do that. But are you looking now, 2024, 2025, looking to expand the training elements behind the firearms? Yes. Yeah. Yes, and that is something we're going to. something we want to do is more training, more live events.
Oh, okay.
So we can get out and, talk to people and let them experience shooting 22s. Because I think, like I've said multiple times, it's a very intimidating thing. So if we can do it in a non-intimidating, just try this type environment.
Yeah.
I think it's our best sales tool.
Yeah.
And I think it helps, even if they don't buy anything from us, it helps acclimate them or introduce them to our community.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And it allows us to, we can sit there and have conversation, answer questions, because you can do a lot online, you can do a lot on Zoom, whatever, but nothing replaces that in-person, conversation or experience.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Are you looking to do some of these events at your HQ, or are you going to look to do them at little micro events around the country?
Micro events around the country.
Okay.
And the one thing we've talked about doing with a couple different companies is even tying it into maybe a company that offers larger caliber handguns and set it up that, they start here. If you're comfortable, you move right down the line.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Like we do an event coming up here in a couple weeks called Winter Strong, which some of it is very experienced, former special forces, they're everything, but then there's also people that have never shot before.
Okay.
And those are the ones that, it lights me up to get them out there. There's something about watching that person's first smile when they hit the target.
Yeah.
And they've never shot a gun before.
Yeah.
I wish we could capture that better for our marketing purposes.
Yeah.
But you almost have to be there to see it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that alone, that feeling, that alone has to put people in that better mood of, one, oh, that wasn't so bad, and two, wow, I can do this.
Yes. And on top of that training, we talked earlier on about doing training for our staff. Part of that too is to make them more comfortable in having the conversations when they're on the phone with customers. It gives them a whole nother outlook and perspective that they maybe didn't have before that.
Yeah. So that alone, like you said, that sales conversation that they're having can completely change the outlook for someone who's potentially coming in and buying, whether it's one of your firearms as the first one, or like you said, even someone else's, it's fine. At least it's breaking down that barrier of entry, which is awesome. That's what you want. Yeah, awesome. Scott, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Before we close, anything you want some of the people who are, like I said, coming to our website, listening to know about your brand, your company, anything else that you think would be helpful to them who are thinking about the home defense and self-defense and personal safety?
I'd say the one thing, if you have any questions, reach out. Yeah. Even if I understand we sell an expensive product and it might not be what you're looking for now, but reach out and ask questions.
Sure.
I'd love to have conversations with, it doesn't have to be them buying a product.
Yeah.
I love having conversations and talking to them, and even recommending, friends' products.
Yeah.
Say, hey, like with your company, or if it's a company that makes stuff we don't make, just start having that conversation, because I think that's where it's easy to get caught. We hide behind our phones or our computers or whatever.
Yeah.
But we can help hopefully educate and train people, and we're happy to do it.
Yeah.
Like I always tell our team that answers the phone, I'm like, I don't track call volume. Because if somebody needs to talk for an hour and a half,
that's what they need.
That's what they need.
Yeah.
I don't want somebody to be like, oh, I gotta go. I
gotta get on the next one.
Yeah. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so reach out to us. We love having those conversations.
Awesome. We'll put all of the information to reach out to Scott, his team, his incredible company, down below. And we're going to also have some links on 221B Tactical in the future coming up under our training and, in our blog about everything you need to know about Volquartsen firearms. You'll see there, so we'll put the link to that as well. Scott, thank you again. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you next time.